The gunmen had him cornered, laughing. What's an old security guard gonna do, they thought, until he spoke 4 words that brought down their entire operation. Those words were Alpha 7 Ghost Active. When the agents heard that code name, one of them whispered in terror, "But he died in 2001. Welcome to People's Journal Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from, and if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because today's story is about the silent heroes who walk among us, never asking for recognition they deserve. In the heart of downtown Los Angeles, in one of those gleaming corporate towers that pierce the smog, you could see the same scene every morning at exactly 7:30 a.m. An older man would straighten his gray uniform, clip his ID badge to his chest, and begin another long day. His name was Michael Rodriguez. He was 67 years old, retired, and for the past 15 years had worked as a security guard in this building. Mike, as most people knew him, was just the guy at the front desk to most. Every morning he'd say, "Good morning." Every evening, "Have a good night." He'd check IDs, register visitors. He was quiet, humble, and nobody ever wondered about his past. The young marketing specialists who worked on the 34th floor would smile when they passed him in the elevator, sometimes even joke around. "Mike, you're like the oldest employee here now," they'd say. He'd smile back. "Yeah, they just keep me around like furniture," he'd joke. But none of them knew that Mike's eyes were constantly moving. He was analyzing every person who entered the building, which floor they'd go to, their behavioral patterns, every detail that seemed off. His mind cataloged it all. Because some habits never die. Some training lasts a lifetime. Under Mike's desk, hidden from view, sat a small radio receiver. It wasn't tuned to any civilian frequency. This was a special channel, and it hadn't been turned on once in 15 years. Dust had gathered on it, because Mike thought those days were behind him. Of the 847 people who worked in the building, not one had wondered why Mike always arrived at the same time, why he knew the entire building by heart, why he memorized every new face. To them, he was just security. Ordinary, harmless, forgettable. In the fall of 2019, a young architect named Kevin started working there. On his first day, he approached Mike and asked, "Mike, what did you do before this?" Mike paused. "Government work, son," he said. "What department?" Kevin pressed. "Homeland Security," Mike replied, avoiding eye contact. "Paperwork." Paperwork. Such a simple answer could cover such a complex past, because Mike's file in the official records showed "Killed in Action 2001. His name was on a memorial wall. His family had attended a funeral. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was much more complicated. Mike's days always followed the same routine. Arrive at 7:30 a.m., leave at 7:30 p.m. Never complained, never missed work, never bothered anyone. But careful observers might have noticed his unusual behaviors. For instance, his way of checking the building each morning. A normal security guard would focus on the main entrance, greeting visitors. Mike would go to every floor, check the exit doors, test whether the fire escapes were unlocked. Security protocol, he'd tell anyone who asked. But the truth was, he was keeping escape routes memorized. Lawyer Sarah Chen, who worked on the 23rd floor, once ran into Mike on the upper floors and asked in surprise, "Mike, what are you doing up here?" Mike paused. "Routine check, Ms. Chen, everything in the building needs to be running smooth." Sarah laughed. "Is all this thoroughness really necessary? We're just office workers after all." Mike's eyes hardened for just a moment. "Miss Chen, danger always comes when you least expect it." That answer stuck with Sarah, because when Mike said it, he didn't sound like a security guard. He sounded like an experienced soldier. On Mike's desk sat an old coffee mug. Every day at lunch break, he'd drink the same coffee and read the same newspapers. But he always read the same sections: domestic security news, international developments, and obituaries. The way he read that last section was particularly odd. He'd scan every name carefully, sometimes lingering longer on certain names. In early 2020, when he saw the obituary of a former CIA operative in the paper, Mike's hand trembled and he set his mug down hard on the desk. For the first time, he skipped his routine security rounds that day, choosing to stay at his desk. The receptionist nearby, Ashley, said, "Mike, you look a little pale today." "Just getting old, kid," Mike replied, but his voice was different than usual. Hoarse. The building employees knew very little about his personal life. He'd say his wife had passed away, that his kids lived overseas, but nobody asked for details. He didn't offer any. However, former police chief Robert Kim, who worked on the 12th floor, had sensed something odd about Mike. The way Mike walked, his posture, how he observed his surroundings, these seemed more like a trained operative than a civilian security guard. One day, Robert approached Mike and tried to make conversation. "Mike, did you really only do paperwork before this?" Mike's posture immediately changed, straighter, more alert. "Why do you ask, Robert?" Robert smiled. "Occupational hazard. You know how it is. People with law enforcement backgrounds keep certain behavioral patterns." Mike was silent for a long time. Then slowly, "Yeah, Robert, some habits never fade." After that conversation, a silent understanding formed between them. Robert would visit more often to chat, but neither would go into details, because some subjects, some pasts, aren't for discussion. While workdays were monotonous, Mike was always alert. He'd note every stranger entering the building, analyze their behavioral patterns. His ability to distinguish between normal visitors and potentially threatening individuals was still razor sharp. It wasn't coincidence that no security incidents had occurred in 15 years. In November 2023, everything began to change. That Tuesday morning started differently than usual. When Mike arrived at work, he found an envelope left on his desk. Only MR was written on it. When he opened it, inside was a single photograph from 2001, a 6-person Special Operations Team photo. Mike stood in the center, but he looked very different then. Young, fit, and with a completely different name. On the back of the photo, written in pencil, was a single sentence. "Some secrets should stay buried." Mike's hands began to tremble. After 22 years, the past had found him. From that day forward, his behavior changed. He became more careful. He observed people entering the building for longer periods. When he talked on the phone, he lowered his voice even more. And most importantly, he started checking that old radio receiver under his desk. On the third day, another message arrived. This time, a text from an unknown number. "The past won't stay buried. Be ready." That evening before going home, Mike re-examined all the building's security cameras. While he normally only looked at daytime footage, that night he stayed late reviewing the past week's recordings. He was looking for something. Abnormal behavior, recurring faces, suspicious movements. And he found it. For the past 3 weeks, the same man had been sitting at the same table in the cafe across from the building. Every day during Mike's shift, he was there, wearing different clothes, coming and going at different times, but always sitting in the same position, at an angle where he could see the building's entrance. Mike couldn't sleep that night. Memories he'd tried to forget for 22 years came flooding back. That operation in the Pacific Northwest, having to change their identities, his team members being killed one by one, on paper only, of course. New identities, new lives, new existences. But now someone remembered them, and that was a very dangerous thing. The next morning when Mike came to work, he found the third message on his desk. This time the envelope contained only an address and a time. "Today, 8 p.m. Griffith Park by the oak tree. Come alone." Mike was extremely tense all day. He couldn't show his usual warmth to employees. He gave short answers to questions. He kept looking out the window. Around 3 p.m., lawyer Sarah Chen approached him. "Mike, you're very different today. Is there a problem?" Mike looked at her for a long time. "Sarah," he said slowly, "sometimes the past doesn't let you go. No matter how far you run, it finds you." Sarah didn't understand these words, but she noticed that old exhaustion in Mike's eyes. This wasn't just the fatigue of age. This was the exhaustion of a man who had seen too much, lived through too much. At 7:30 p.m., Mike's shift ended, but he didn't leave the building. He stayed in the security office and told the night shift guard, Hassan, that he'd be staying late. Working a little overtime tonight, he said. Hassan was surprised because Mike never worked overtime. Is there a problem, Mike? Mike smiled, but his eyes weren't smiling. No, kid, just need to close an old file. At 7:45 p.m., Mike left the building and headed to Griffith Park. 22 years of silence was coming to an end. Griffith Park was quiet that evening. When Mike arrived at the designated spot, a man was waiting for him by the oak tree. Middle-aged, wearing a suit, but Mike didn't recognize him. Michael Rodriguez, the man said as he approached, or more accurately, Lion 7. Mike's blood froze. Lion 7, that code name hadn't been used by anyone in 22 years. Who are you? Mike asked, his voice containing neither fear nor surprise, just tired acceptance. Who I am doesn't matter, the man said. What matters is who you are. And that identity officially died in 2001. The man pulled a folder from his pocket and handed it to Mike. Look inside. When Mike opened the folder, he saw his own funeral report, a photo of his own tombstone, his own death certificate, and underneath, a note. Operation completed. Lion unit disbanded. All members integrated into system with new identities. Why are you showing me this? Mike asked. Because it's time to hide again, the man said. Details of the Lion operation are leaking. New administration officials are questioning old covert operations. If your real identity is exposed, it's not just you. All the old team members will be in danger. Mike closed the folder. What do you want? Disappear, the man said simply. Really disappear this time. Leave the Michael Rodriguez identity too. Go somewhere completely new. Live with a completely new identity. I've been doing that for 22 years already. No, for 22 years you were hiding. Now you need to run. The man pulled out an envelope. Inside is a new identity, passport, and enough money. You need to be out of Los Angeles by tomorrow morning. Mike didn't take the envelope. What if I refuse? The man's expression hardened. Don't refuse, Lion 7, because the alternative is much worse. Mike studied the man for a long time. Then he took the envelope. Fine. But first I need to do something. What? I need to say goodbye. The man nodded. 24 hours. Then you need to destroy everything that could leave a trail. After the man left, Mike sat on the bench for a long time. His 22-year life was ending in one night. That monotonous but safe routine at the building, the familiar faces, the small conversations, it would all be left behind. But the hardest part was that he couldn't tell anyone the truth. The next morning, Mike came to the building for the last time. He tried to act normal, but there was a great sadness inside him. Maybe this would be the last day they'd see him. He did his morning routine one last time, visited all floors, checked the exit doors, but this time it wasn't just security control. It was a farewell tour. At 10 a.m., young marketing specialist Emily came to the lobby to catch the elevator as usual. Good morning, Mike, she said cheerfully. Mike smiled at her warmer than ever. Good morning, beautiful. You look very nice today. Emily was surprised because Mike never spoke this intimately. Thank you, Mike. You look different today, too. How different? I don't know, more peaceful somehow. Mike's eyes welled up, but he tried not to show it. Sometimes a person has to make certain decisions, kid. Difficult decisions. During lunch break, Robert Kim came to Mike's side. Will you have coffee with me one last time today? He asked. Mike was surprised. How do you know it's the last time? Robert smiled. Occupational hazard, I told you. I can read people's behavior. You're saying goodbye today. They had coffee together in silence. Finally, Robert spoke. I don't want to know, but I'm curious. What did you really do for work? Mike was quiet for a long time. National security, he said finally. Details don't matter. Is there danger? There always was. Now there's a bit more. Robert nodded. I understand. Stay safe, Mike. You're a good man. At 6 p.m., half an hour before his shift ended, alarms started blaring. Armed gunmen had appeared outside the building. 2 men with automatic weapons were approaching the building. When Mike saw them on the security cameras, his blood ran cold. This wasn't the planned attack. This was real. And it was very badly timed. He immediately locked down the building and triggered alarms to warn all employees. But the gunmen were professionals and blasted through the main entrance. While the 847 people in the building fled in panic to the upper floors, Mike stayed downstairs. He grabbed his radio and tried to call security forces. When the gunmen cornered him, they were laughing. What's an old security guard going to do? But Mike made a decision in that moment. The 22-year hiding period was over anyway. He had nothing left to hide. He pulled out that old radio receiver from under his desk. For the first time in 22 years, he turned it on, and he leaned into the microphone. Alpha 7 Ghost active, he whispered. Everyone who heard the code name froze, not just the gunmen, but the special forces who were scrambling in the building's security center. The young operator in the security center couldn't believe his ears. "Commander," he shouted into his phone, "someone just used the Alpha 7 Ghost active code." The voice on the other end trembled. "But he died in 2001. 3 minutes later, the building was surrounded. Special forces, intelligence units, even highly classified operation teams had rushed to the scene, none of them for the gunmen, all for whoever had used that code name. The gunmen were neutralized before they understood what was happening. Mike sat at the security desk, calmly waiting. The first Special Forces commander to enter was shocked when he saw Mike. "Are you really Lion 7? Mike nodded. "I used to be." The commander grabbed his radio. "Control, Lion 7 is really alive." "Repeat, Lion 7 is operational and secure." That night the building was evacuated. Employees were sent home, but none were told the truth. The official statement was, terrorist attack successfully prevented. Mike was taken to a secure location. After 22 years, he was back in the system. The next day, when employees came to the building, they found a new security guard in Mike's place. "Where's Mike?" they asked. "He retired," officials said. "Made a sudden decision." Nobody questioned it, because sometimes people just disappear from your life. But Robert Kim, watching the news that evening about the prevented terrorist attack, smiled. "Good luck, Mike," he said to himself. "Whoever you are, wherever you go." Mike is now living in a completely different city, with a completely different identity. Maybe he's working another ordinary job again. Maybe nobody knows his real identity again. But one thing is certain. If he faces another dangerous situation, that code name will still hold its power. Because some names are never forgotten. Some code names become legend. How did this story make you feel? Have you ever thought that there might be people around you like Mike, hiding their past but ready to spring into action when needed? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to tell us what city you're watching from. If you think stories like this need to be told more often, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because real heroes live quietly, serve silently, and when necessary, they change the world with a single code name.